Hey, what's up guys? Vertigo has been going through a lot of changes since its debut in the competitive map pool. However, since the map has recently been a bit more stable and seems to remain unchanged for the foreseeable future, I thought it would be a good idea to make a guide that shows the current meta on the map. So to do this, I will show you some examples of the professionals during their matches on Vertigo. And for this video, we will go through all of the nades that they consistently use in their gameplay to take control of the ramp and a bomb site area. This way, by the end of the video, I hope to help you achieve a reliable baseline of knowledge for this part of the map that will get you started playing on Vertigo. So let's jump straight into it. Starting off, we have this example from Zipic's POV. During defaults, the player at ramp will usually throw this smoke that lands a little bit to the right. This allows the attackers to get into the corner while at the same time it denies crucial information for the CTs at ramp. One of the main advantages of this smoke is that it functions as a one-way. In this clip against Vitality, we can see that Zipix has vision of this ledge and will be able to shoot if anyone was holding this angle. However, looking at it from the opposite side and putting ourselves in the shoes of the CTs, it becomes obvious that it is almost impossible to see anyone that is behind the smoke. For the lineup, use this beam on the left to bounce the smoke and make it land at the right side of the ramp. It doesn't have to be very precise, just make sure you're running while you release the smoke to make it land far enough so that it will create this one-way effect. Now sometimes Zipix follows the smoke up with a flashbang. This one bounces off the wall on the left and lands on the scaffolding. So if anyone is aggressively contesting this area coming from Ivy, then they will be blinded. To line up the flashbang, just make sure to throw it high enough so that it will bounce back far enough and land inside the vision of the enemy. Another option to follow up this first smoke would be to use a Molotov. This Molotov could be thrown towards the entrance of Ivy and this way prevent that aggressive CT push completely. Those are just a few options, and depending on the tendencies from the enemy, you can mix it up a bit from round to round to stay unpredictable. The lineup for this Molotov is nothing fancy by the way, just make sure it bounces back slightly from the steel beam on the right, and since the Ivy area is already a narrow choke point, it will be completely covered in flames. Now back to that first smoke. When it comes to the ramp smokes, Team Liquid have their own smoke that I like to use from time to time. This one is a bit different compared to that previous one because it lands higher up the ramp next to the sandbags, and this way blocks off a different angle. For the lineup, Elish or sometimes Nitro comes over to this arrow sign. From here, they then aim slightly above the box as shown, then run and quickly release with a default left click throw. The smoke bounces off the wall on the left and it lands right next to the sandbags. I'm personally not completely convinced of the benefits of this smoke compared to that one at the scaffolding, but I guess it can be something that you could use from time to time to keep your opponents guessing. Or perhaps if you've been struggling to deal with the AWPer that likes to peek from the top of ramp, then the smoke might be a good way to give you some more breathing room at the start of the round. Oh, and by the way, here is another way to block off early aggression from the CTs at Ivy. After spawning, Magisk sometimes uses this smoke, thrown from T-spawn, that allows his other teammates to more comfortably take control of ramp. The smoke will land in the middle of the entrance of Ivy, and this way it eliminates one of the most common angles that CTs will use at the start of the round. It is thrown from this position next to the spawn, aim up at the crane above and try to put your crosshair somewhere in this area as shown on screen. I personally like this one, where you basically aim at the edge of the building since it will give a good smoke without any gaps. However, I guess this is something based on personal preference, since it might also be useful to actually create a small gap on the right side to perhaps trick your opponents with a one-way smoke. Once you've positioned your crosshair, then do the jump throw and the smoke will arc very high and land at Ivy after a couple of seconds, just in time for your teammates to be safe at ramp. With one or two of those previous smokes in place, players will now try and get up higher onto the ramp and put themselves in positions where they can prepare for an execute towards the A-site. That one smoke is often not enough however. A common way for defenders to hold the ramp position would be to hold from an angle such as this one. To deal with this, most attacking teams will use a lot of flashes that explode towards the top of ramp. The flashbang pops right into this line of sight, and since it's only visible by the time it explodes, it will be very hard for the defender in this angle to avoid. It's definitely not an understatement when I say that this is a very commonly used flashbang. The data from Astralis' two most recent matches shows that they have used 60 flashbangs at the ramp area during their T-side gameplay. This is 60 flashbangs in only 36 rounds, so an average of 1.66 flashes used at ramp each round. There is no specific lineup required, you can bounce the flashbang either on the floor or even on the wall on the left. Just make sure that it pops far enough into this angle at the top of ramp. Even though that previous flashbang allows attackers to deal with that annoying angle on the left, there is still the sneaky position behind the sandbags that the defending team might try and use once or twice in a match. And I know, it sometimes feels like a waste when you use the Molotov and there's nobody at sandbags, but still, if you do run the risk of not clearing this angle, then it might quite easily backfire and lose you a valuable round. So to prevent this from happening, teams will regularly use one of their Molotovs to clear out this annoying angle. To achieve this, you can always use the cover provided by the wall from ramp to stay out of vision while throwing the Molotov. Just aim above this beam and release with a left click throw. The Molotov will bounce at the wall and cover all of the area behind the sandbags. This will either force the defender in this position to peek into ramp, or he might use his smoke for smoking himself off. Either way, you as an attacker will have the advantage, since both of these situations are quite easy to deal with. At this point, the attackers have now taken ramp control and made sure that nobody is close in Ivy and nobody is behind the sandbags. Time for an A execute. So what does a good A execute usually look like? In most of the rounds, an A execute consists of a wall of smokes that allows the attackers to walk up onto the bomb site and plant the bomb while the defenders are stuck behind the smoke. This wall of smokes usually consists of two elements. The first smoke is this one, as we see in Alex's POV. It is thrown from the top of ramp, and since it's just behind the corner, he is now not visible to any of the defenders at site or double. The position has some room for errors, as long as you're standing at this wall and you're not visible to sight, then you're good to go. Aim at the top of this first vertical line and release with a left click throw. The smoke will bounce against the structure and then land and function as the right side smoke. With this smoke in place, the vision from double is taken away, so anyone in this position won't be able to see the bomb being planted. For the second element of the A-site execute, we need to have a look at this smoke used by Zaiwu. Standing next to the sandbags, he uses this pole from the scaffolding to bounce the smoke, which makes it land at the left part of the site and completes the wall of smokes. The lineup itself is very easy to remember. First, come over to the sandbags at ramp. From here, you look at that yellow pole from the scaffolding and put your crosshair at the height where it meets the steel beam on the right. Then, release with a jump throw and the smoke will bounce at the top of the pole and then land at the left part of the bomb site. Make sure to not put your crosshair too high for this one, because if you do, then the smoke might end up flying over the pole and completely miss its mark. Instead, aiming slightly lower is the safer option, and it won't affect the position of the landing that much. One thing I always try to emphasize in these videos is that you have to be aware why you are using a certain piece of utility and what it will do in that specific situation. So let's do the same for this wall of smokes and put ourselves in the shoes of the defenders. Most teams know that the meta for an A execute is to use this wall of smokes that lands at the back of site. And since retaking the bomb site is not always the most reliable way to win rounds, the good teams will therefore often try and contest some of the other angles that are in front of those smokes to prevent the bomb from being planted in the first place. We've already seen that Molotov for sandbags and one for the angle close in Ivy. However, there is one more angle left that needs to be taken into account. This angle behind the box towards Ivy is the only remaining angle that defenders can use to defend the bomb site when the smoke wall execute is deployed. So, in order to make sure that this is not an option for the defenders anymore, the attacking team will often use a Molotov that lands in this position and forces the defenders into a more uncomfortable angle. For the Molotov, come over to this part of the scaffolding at the ramp, then aim up at the top of this square within the steel beam and release with a jump throw. The Molotov bounces against the concrete and lands at the corner behind the box. This way, this strong angle is left in flames, and the defender that was holding this position before is now forced to either play this angle next to the wood, where he can be easily killed with a wallbang, or he is forced to play right here next to this side, but this leaves him in the middle, exposed to two different angles that attackers could be coming from. To complete the execute and provide even more cover for the attacker, who's planting the bomb, most teams will use this Molotov at double that combined with the smokes at the back of the site creates a very solid execution that minimizes the options of the defenders and often forces them into a retake scenario. The Molotov can be thrown from the same position used for the smoke on the right side. This time, aim up at the beam, as shown on the screen, and release with a left click throw. The Molotov lands on top of the white structure and even spreads to the double box behind it. This way it prevents anyone to jump up and kill the bomb planter, because instead the defender at double will now be forced to fall back and go for a retake. This could even be followed up with a second Molotov for those who are really taking no chances. The lineup is almost the same for this one, this time just aim at the top left corner of the beam instead. This way the Molotov will bounce a little bit higher and land behind the double box. Together with that other Molotov at the top, this will now completely leave that area in flames and reduce the hopes of the defenders to ashes. So there we have it, we have now seen all of the nades that are currently most often used by the pro teams when they attempt to get control towards the A bomb site of Vertigo. To summarize the things we've learned, let's have a look at a round from Astralis in their match against Vitality. In the beginning of the round, we see that Magisk uses this smoke from T-spawn, which will land in the entrance of Ivy. By that time, Xyp9x, Glaive and Device have already made their way to ramp, and by using 2 flashes at the ramp, they have given Xyp9x a safe passage into the scaffolding. During this time, Dupree uses smoke and 2 flashes towards the entrance of the B stairs to deny information from the defenders, and this way prevent a quick flank from coming in. With this default control towards the top of ramp, Astralis is now in a position where they can go for that execute towards the A bomb site. First of all, Magisk uses 1 Molotov for the box at Ivy, which is combined with some wallbangs from Glaive to discourage any defenders from playing in this position. In this particular round, it's actually Zywu who was getting bullied by that Molotov and the wallbang. But instead of giving up the map control by falling back, he decides to go for the more aggressive solution, which consists of re-peeking into Ivy with the help of a pop flash from Alex. This re-peek is unsuccessful however, because once he peeks into the angle, he immediately gets taken down by Magisk, who was already pre-aiming the corner and started shooting while he was blinded. RPK tries to get the trade frag onto Magisk but fails to do so, and goes down himself, but due to the inflicted damage from RPK, Magisk will eventually go down to the incendiary from Alex. While all of this was going on, both Glaive and Device used their 2 smokes to create that wall of smokes at the back of the bomb site. As we mentioned before however, it is those positions in front of the smokes that actually counter this type of execute. In this round it is Alex with the AWP behind default who manages to eliminate Device with a quick kill using the AWP. But because of the smokes, Alex is now isolated and has no backup from his teammates, so he decides to fall back and give up control of the bomb site. This is where that Molotov behind double comes in handy, forcing him off the angle once again and denying them any opportunity to stop the plant. Once the bomb has been planted, Astralis can then play the after plant situation to their advantage, and they eventually manage to win the round because some clever positioning from Xyp9x delays the retake and runs down the timer, winning them the round. So there we go, we've had a look at a few different examples from recent professional matches on Vertigo. By analyzing some of the most commonly used nades from these teams, I hope it gives you some insights that will help you to get more consistent success on this map. For this video, we focused on the attacking side and narrowed it down to the ramp and A site area. So if you guys like this type of video, let me know in the comments or leave a like, and I might make a follow-up on this one that focuses on other parts of the map too. For now, good luck with practicing, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.